decision is going to be announced on Saturday, 5 o'clock on Saturday, at the White House.
Supreme Court vacancy has become maybe the most important issue in this presidential race.
The list of topics for the first presidential debate announced.
Trump and Biden's records, the Supreme Court, COVID-19, the economy, race and violence in our cities, and the integrity of the election.
I've never said that. Shut up and dance with me, just for the record. I'm not sure Ainsley or Steve have, but this is Fox and Friends, the city where 87% of eateries can't pay their rent because they're not allowed to open up. But I digress. The president, the former vice president of the United States, will be in Charlotte, North Carolina today. His wife won't be. She'll be in Arizona, as 2020 is now 42 days away from Election Day.
And you know what? I have a prediction. They won't answer questions again because so many people would like to get the Bidens on the record. Would you pack the court? Would you get rid of the filibuster? Can we see your list of justices for the Supreme Court? But you know what? They're just busy. And Joe is, as we heard the president talk last night about Joe Biden, the president wonders whether or not Joe Biden may actually wear the mask during the debate. He also wondered why Joe Biden spends so much on plastic surgery if he was always going to be wearing a mask. But that's something else.
I'll tell you the big news, though, is Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney said that he would consider the nominee and possibly take a vote. He said, I intend to proceed with the consideration process, and the president said that makes him happy, and he thanked Mitt Romney. And in just hours, the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg will lie in repose at the Supreme Court.
This, as President Trump says he'll announce his pick to fill her seat on Saturday.
5 o'clock Saturday, I do believe. Griff Jenkins is out in the dark outside of the Supreme Court, where all eyes are on that building once again today. Griff?
They are indeed. Steve, Ainsley, and Brian, good morning to you. And Ainsley, you mentioned Mitt Romney. Let me tell you, just 24 hours ago, you and I were talking about a looming GOP showdown, but an unlikely hero Romney was, delivering the key GOP vote to push the confirmation process forward after Collins and Murkowski were going to oppose. Last night, the president expressed his gratitude for Romney's vote. Listen.
But he was very good today, I have to tell you. He was good. Now I'm happy. Thank you, Mitt. Thank you. No, he was very good. Very positive statement.
The Utah senator explaining his decision to reporters in the hallways on the Hill.
What I intend to do is to proceed with the consideration process, and if a nominee actually reaches the floor, that I will vote based upon the qualifications of that nominee.
Now, with Romney's support, the proverbial Senate math is all but there. You look at the numbers here, 51 Republicans in favor, 2 Republicans opposed, 47 Democrats opposed. That puts the nominee, which the president, as we heard, will be announced on Saturday, on the path towards confirmation. But even with the numbers against him, Democrats are fighting back with calls to pack the court. Now, that means if Democrats win in November, they will add seats to the high court. Presumably, that's at least 4 to override the 6-3 conservative majority. But Joe Biden refusing to answer direct questions over whether he would take that step, telling a local Green Bay station, quote, let me tell you why I'm not going to answer that question, because it will shift the whole focus. That's what he wants. He never wants to talk about the issue at hand. Meanwhile, President Trump hammering away at Joe Biden for not releasing his own list of potential candidates. Listen.
Now I'm asking Sleepy Joe Biden to give me a list, and he doesn't want to do it. You know why? Because he can only put super radical left judges on people that would destroy your country, people that would destroy your country.
Now, in just a few hours, history will be made. Justice Ginsburg will arrive here at 9:30 for a private ceremony with family members and the other members of the court. Then she will lie in repose, where tens of thousands of members of the public may come and visit her over today and tomorrow. Then on Friday, she'll go across the street and lie in state at the Capitol in Statuary Hall, a first ever for a woman, yet again breaking a barrier posthumously. Brian, Ainsley, Steve.
Thank you so much, Griff. Yes, and when it comes to filling the Supreme Court seat, the president did say yesterday at the rally he's going to pick a woman. We know that. He's just doubling down on that. He said he's going to pick a great scholar, a brilliant woman. He says the justices set policy for 50 years. And when it comes to impeachment, he said these people are stone cold crazy.
Yeah, there's the president embraces his point. You forget about it, but during the impeachment his ratings went up about 5%, and then the pandemic hit. We weren't really thinking about that.
And maybe he's welcoming it. He says, y'all go ahead and do it.
And it's such a distraction, Ainsley, because during that time the pandemic was taking root, and obviously Congress was distracted, and just like Bill Clinton was distracted when bin Laden was plotting and planning. We know what happened during that impeachment. But during this whole time, we never get Joe Biden's opinions. We say, you said one thing during the primaries, you're saying another thing now, and when he's questioned, he says it's all about Donald Trump. He wants to switch it on the president. I don't think he has that luxury, because when it comes to something like packing the court, that's called an immediate agenda. Because if you pack the court for the first time since 1869, that's something the American people should know about ahead of time. And the word is through the Democratic circles that they're saying, Joe, whatever you do, don't comment on what Ed Markey and Jerry Nadler started over the weekend, and that is packing the court and getting rid of the filibuster. Here's Brit Hume.
The big issue is the court and the opening and the opportunity the Republicans have to fill it, and the desire of Democrats to block that. I don't know that Joe Biden can duck questions on this perpetually. My sense about his instinct is that he recognizes that the idea of court packing strikes a lot of people as liberal. It has a kind of a bad name, court packing. It just sounds bad. You know, he may want to shy away from it from that reason. And I don't think it's really totally about, you know, the feeling that it keeps the focus off Trump, although, because not answering that question doesn't really do that.
So a couple of things. When it comes to court packing, don't say FDR failed. He threatened to do it because they were holding up a lot of his New Deal proposals. And because he threatened to do it, the Republicans said, you better not. But when they pulled back on it, he got what he wanted off the New Deal because he threatened to, increase the size of the court. Right. And the last thing on this, Politico talked to about over a dozen Republicans. Only a handful think this can get done, Steve, before Election Day.
Well, Mitch McConnell said, I'm going to wait to see the timetable from Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham essentially is going to start the committee hearings, it sounds like, on the week of October 12th. It'll take about a week. And then they could have a floor vote before Halloween. However, Mitch McConnell has not committed to that because he's got a number of vulnerable Republican senators who he does not want to put on the hook. The president would like to see it happen sooner than later. The whole thing about court packing, ultimately, though, there are two important points to remember about that. Why won't Joe Biden talk about it? Because his handlers have made it very clear, whatever you do, don't talk about anything other than coronavirus and about President Trump's character. And the reason for that is if he starts talking about court packing, it is not popular. There's a group called Data for Progress, which is a progressive pollster unit, and they've done a poll on it, and they found that only 40% favor court packing if a Republican is, if the Republicans confirm Trump's nominee. So it's not even popular with the progressives. Meanwhile, here's the thing to keep in mind. Joe Biden can try all he wants, Ainsley and Brian, not to answer questions from the Green Bay reporter or Peter Doocy, who tried to get Kamala Harris twice yesterday.
Who likes Green Bay?
Maybe. I think they were in Flint. But he will not be, they will not be able to not answer the question at the debates. And Chris Wallace is going to ask about court packing and other things because we got from the Commission on Presidential Debates the list of topics they will go through, and each of these topics will go for about 15 minutes. Trump and Biden, their records, the Supreme Court, so clearly there's going to be court packing talk there. COVID, there's going to be a lot there. The economy, race and violence in our cities, the integrity of the election. And Ainsley, those will be in no particular order, and they've made it very clear that there's a possibility that the topics could change based on the news. Just keep in mind how the dialogue in America has changed so much since Friday night when it was announced that RBG had passed.
Yeah, that's why, isn't that interesting? In just a split second, everything changes for the debate because that's now the second topic, the Supreme Court. And Senator John Kennedy said this has become the most important issue in the White House race now. Listen to this.
Like it or not, the Supreme Court vacancy has become maybe the most important issue in this presidential race. And President Trump is shortly, I'm told, going to tell us where he stands. I think Vice President Biden needs to do the same thing. And he needs to either support or condemn his colleagues who have threatened to destroy the U.S. Supreme Court by packing it.
So the president said that the reason that Biden's not answering these questions, he says he can only put left radical judges on the court that would destroy our country. But he is going to have to answer those questions. I don't know how he's going to skate around it during the debate. The debate's next Tuesday. We'll all be watching 9 to 10:30 p.m. right here on Fox.
And he'll look just as bad, Ainsley, if he skates around it as he does if he answers it. So I think people will be their own judge. 90 minutes, no commercials. But we don't know if there's going to be an overriding sponsor, maybe Leaf Guard.
I heard My Pillow.
Please, one more commercial. I'm going to get some rest. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is asked in this thing called the follow-up question about being a socialist, and the document he signed with Bernie Sanders, essentially it's a series of memos of understanding that Joe Biden's going to be more like Bernie, and Bernie's not going to budge at all. And remember, when Joe Biden's asked a few questions, he says some pretty angry things, and maybe some things that create news. That's why they keep him away from questions. Here's another example. Yesterday, talking to a local affiliate, WLUK, about Bernie Sanders. Listen.
If you could address our camera directly, talk to the voters that are worried about socialism and you raising taxes.
I beat the socialists. That's how I got elected. That's how I got the nomination. Do I look like a socialist? Look at my career, my whole career. I am not a socialist.
Yeah, but the reason why you have united the Democratic Party is because you're not a moderate. Because moderates would not have AOC, would not have the Squad, would not have the Democratic Party behind him, would not have Senator Markey. So I think he's got to be asked when the rubber hits the road. And if he decides to go moderate, he's going to have an insurrection of Democrats who go, who put this guy up there?
Politics are transactional. Joe Biden saw the writing on the wall, and he was losing until South Carolina and James Clyburn came up and endorsed him, and then he won, and that completely turned everything. But he is a realist, Joe Biden is, and he realizes that the only way he could win at that point was he had to get all of those Bernie Sanders voters and supporters on his side. That was the conventional wisdom. The only way Joe could win was with Bernie's help. And now for him to refer to Bernie as the socialist, yeah, I beat the socialist, well, that's really something. But then again, if you're a socialist or if you are an activist in the party and your party politics do not align with Joe Biden, that's okay, because all they've got to do is they've got to get him in the White House. Once he has the keys to Air Force One in his pocket, they can change him. We've heard that time and again in the last couple of months.
Get that Trojan horse through the gates, right?
That's right.
Then we'll jump out. Then we'll push Biden further to the left.
Can I add one thing to what Biden said? Different from the fact he's not a socialist. No one thinks he's necessarily a socialist. But the way he answered it shows a lack of skill and shows that temper again, which you always say if you're a skilled politician is, hey, Bernie Sanders and I have been friends for a long time, but we differ on some issues. You don't say, I beat the socialist. That's the same guy that says, are you a junkie? And that's the same guy that says, if you ain't black if you don't vote for me. These are knee-jerk responses to somewhat contentious questions, which should give a clue to the president how to tick them off.
But Brian, when he says, look at my career, I'm not a socialist, and he's blasting Bernie, I beat the socialists. But look who he chose as his vice presidential nominee.
Good point.
It's Kamala Harris, the most radical person in the Senate. She voted to ban fracking, wants to raise your taxes, praised LA's mayor for slashing the LAPD's budget by $150 million, supporting sanctuary cities, wants to stop construction on the border wall. She wants to give free health care to illegals. I mean, look at her record.
Right. Good point.
There you go.
Right,
so anyway, lots to talk about today.
The appointment of a United States Supreme Court justice was much more important to the voters than I thought. And they're right, because they will set policy for 50 years, whether it's life, whether it's Second Amendment. The Second Amendment, so many presidents, they just don't have the chance, and it's so important.
Well, President Trump, you can hear there, touting the Supreme Court's ability to set policy for decades as he plans to nominate his third candidate this Saturday. Here to discuss is Arkansas Attorney General Leslie Rutledge. Good morning to you, Leslie.
Good morning.
Good morning. How historic is this?
This is absolutely important, and what another landmark appointment by this president, third U.S. Supreme Court nomination during his term, and we will expect more during his second term. So this Saturday, we will hear that the president has nominated someone, utmost qualification, but it's going to be a battle royale in the United States Senate and across America. I agree with U.S. Senator Kennedy from Louisiana that this is the most important issue right now for voters as we go into these last 40 days.
It's so interesting how how politics can change at the drop of a hat. On Thursday, this was not the most important issue to many voters. It was probably the economy or COVID or law and order. And then on Friday, everything changed with the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Indeed, and we saw this even in 2016. I was the only elected official in the state of Arkansas to go to convention in 2016 as a Trump delegate, and the reason why I did so, I said I had two words: Supreme Court. And that was a big issue in 2016 as we see the age of the justices on the Supreme Court and the importance of these decisions. These are 50, 60, 70, these are generational decisions that the U.S. Supreme Court makes. I know that we have an argument coming up October 6th with regard to pharmacy benefit managers. We have the ACA case coming up in November. So there are big decisions that are made by the court that last for generations.
Right. Let's talk about what's happening down in Florida, because you can't vote if you're a convicted felon if you still owe money to the government, if you haven't paid your fines. And Bloomberg, Mayor Bloomberg, former mayor of New York City, lots of money. He raised $16 million to pay those fines so those convicted felons could go to the polls. Matt Gaetz, this is what he said about it.
There may be a criminal investigation already underway of the Bloomberg-connected activities in Florida. Florida statute says that it is a third-degree felony for someone to either directly or indirectly provide something of value to impact whether or not someone votes. So the question is whether or not paying off someone's fines and legal obligations counts as something of value, and it clearly does.
Leslie, what do you think?
Well, this is just typical, good old-fashioned, dirty Democrat politics. And Mayor Bloomberg is someone who, as we describe, has more money than sense. And he is, if he is paying the fines of these felons, I think it's absolutely fair that the American public, particularly Floridians, know why he is paying for these fines to allow them to vote. And it sounds like the statute, the law, is pretty clear that if you're giving something of value to have someone vote. And to me, paying off a fine is certainly something of value.
Thank you so much, Leslie, for being with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's 6:24 here on the East Coast. The first presidential debate is 6 days away, and now we know what topics will be discussed. So what can we expect from President Trump and Joe Biden? A tale of the tape next.
We are less than 1 week away, talk about 6 days, from President Trump and former VP Joe Biden going head-to-head in Debate 1. With tonight's topics just released by our own Chris Wallace, what can we expect from the two nominees? Let's get a look back at their past debate performances to find out. Here to break it down is Brett O'Donnell. He's been described as the best political debate coach in the country, and actually Stephen Ainsley agree with that, and has previously worked with George W. Bush, Mitt Romney, and more. All right, so Brett, let's talk about this by looking at Joe Biden's past. I want you to comment on Joe Biden against Paul Ryan and see if it applies for today. Listen.
It makes us more weak. It projects weakness, and when we look weak, our adversaries are much more willing to test us. They're more brazen in their attacks, and our allies are less willing to
With all due respect, that's a bunch of malarkey.
And why is that so?
Because not a single thing he said is accurate.
So is that crisp enough to go shoulder to shoulder with President Trump?
Well, I think we'll see. That was 8 years ago, Joe Biden. And so, it remains to be seen whether or not he is as sharp as he was 8 years ago in debating Paul Ryan with President Trump. And President Trump is definitely more assertive and aggressive than Paul Ryan. So I think those two things could throw a big wrench into Joe Biden's plans if he tries to be aggressive with Donald Trump. So, we'll see. He has not done any tough interviews in this campaign so far. Whether or not he can handle the toughest of interviews, a presidential debate, being attacked by the president and also tough questions from Chris Wallace in that first debate remains to be seen.
What's kind of interesting, it's kind of reverse. He's coming off, you know, he is with Mitt Romney. Ryan wants the job. Biden has the job, so he's defending his record. That's what Trump has to do, defend his record. But back then, against Hillary Clinton, he was the challenger. Listen to this.
The fact checkers are turning up the volume and really working hard. Donald supported the invasion of Iraq.
Wrong.
That is absolutely
wrong.
Proved over and over again.
Wrong.
So that is a little disruptive. That's not from the debate school 101.
Absolutely not. I mean, the president is the ultimate disruptor, but he's facing the consummate career politician. And so, you know, Joe Biden has a record as well. And I think if the president will stay on offense and make this a choice between himself and Joe Biden, particularly given, you know, the entrance of the Supreme Court into the race, I think that allows the president to play less defense, more offense.
And the president's not going to be memorizing everything Joe Biden said, but it would help him to know where Biden stands. It helped Joe Biden when he found out where Paul Ryan stood. Listen.
You did ask for stimulus money,
sure,
correct?
Did. By the way, on two occasions, we advocated for constituents who are applying for grants. That's what we do. We do that for all constituents who are applying.
I love that. I love that. This is such a bad program, and he writes me a letter saying, writes the Department of Energy a letter saying, the reason we need this stimulus, it will create growth and jobs. His words.
So got him there, right?
Absolutely. I mean, Joe Biden was very aggressive. He had some key attack points on Paul Ryan. He was able to execute those, and he put Paul Ryan on defense almost the entire night. The question is whether or not he still has that command of facts and debate and could put the president on defense, who is much more aggressive. And the president already knows key parts of Joe Biden's record on trade, on criminal justice. Those are things that I think the president will use against him. He can use substantive attacks against Joe Biden to put him on defense. And you know, in the last presidential debate, primary debates, Joe Biden didn't acquit himself all that well in moments where he had to think quickly on his feet. We'll see if he can do that this time.
He would look thrown when he first started getting attacked. You almost felt bad for him. And he stopped getting attacked because it didn't look like it was even contention anymore. Brett, how much does it benefit the President of the United States that he sat down with Chris Wallace for at least an hour in 100-degree temperatures? They even had small talk prior to that. He basically went through this list already with the guy that's going to be hitting him with the questions.
I think that's a tremendous advantage. First of all, Chris Wallace is a tough interviewer. He's tough on everyone. The president has been through that now, and so he can anticipate how Chris Wallace might approach this debate. Joe Biden hasn't sat down for any tough interviews. He's been handled with kid gloves by the press, and so it'll be interesting to see how he fares in the crucible of debate in one of the most anticipated presidential debates ever.
Yeah, we have so many more questions for you, including who needs the knockout and where are these polls and how it's going to play into the strategy. And like you said, a vice president's been out of the fray for 8 years. Brett, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, straight ahead. Some Democrats renewing calls to pack the Supreme Court with liberal justices if Republicans approve President Trump's pick before the election. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin will tell us where he stands.
I would not get into court packing. We had 3 justices. Next time around, we lose control. They had 3 justices. We began to lose any credibility for the court has at all. And so I would not pack the court.
Okay, so there he was very clear. He would not pack the court, and yet now when he is asked, he will not answer the question. Of course, this is going to be very important on Tuesday. Brian was just talking about the debate with that great debate coach. Now let's bring in Democratic Senator from the great state of West Virginia, Joe Manchin, joins us from the D.C. area. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning to all of you. Good to be with you.
It's good to have you as well. You know, a lot of this is suddenly, for a lot of people, the #1 issue that will determine who they vote for president. Donald Trump has made it very clear how he feels. He's put his list out there. We don't know who the name is. We'll find out Saturday at 5 o'clock. But Joe Biden won't release the list, and he will not tell us whether or not he supports packing the court. Aren't these questions that people fairly should have an answer to before they vote for somebody?
Well, basically, up until President Trump came along, no one ever announced who they would be considering or who was on their top list. So it's not unusual for him not to do that.
But it's very transparent.
It's very transparent where President Trump is coming from, absolutely. And I guess the people that would demand that could say, well, why won't you do the same thing? But try not to politicize. You know, my goodness, everything's so political. Jurors should be picked on their qualifications, their experience level, and basically their findings. And you can say you agree or disagree because of the way they've ruled on other cases. But until that happens, until that vacancy comes, that's when basically it gets serious about considering.
How do you feel? Do you feel like you should take a vote after the election?
I truly do. You know, and I've looked back and we've looked in history. The Congressional Research Center, basically, we went and dove deep into that. There's only been 13 times from the starting January 1 to Election Day, 13 times that a vacancies have happened. And up until July 1st, and 9 of those, out of the 8 of the 9 that have been done, they were all confirmed except for Merrick Garland. From July 1st Election Day, only 4 times in the history of the United States. And 3 times the president didn't even put anybody up from July 1st to Election Day because it was too close. Abraham Lincoln in 1864 wouldn't put a nominee forward. So we look at history, and this is going to be a precedent setting. And, you know, it's just a tough situation. We should be waiting. And if I use the words of all my colleagues, Republican colleagues with Merrick Garland, let the people decide. It's election year. Let them decide, but especially within 40 days, 42 days to go.
But, Senator, if the shoe were on the other foot, if we had a Democratic president and a Democratic Senate, what do you think would happen?
I'd feel the same way. I'm sure that basically there would be a push to shove somebody through, but I would be same, and I would hope there would be other colleagues in the Democratic Party that would basically say there's no civility, there's no fairness to it, and we have to make sure that we set some precedent. You know, the Senate's different. The Senate is much different. The Senate was basically designed and intended to be bipartisan. And every time we break away and keep pulling that cover off, there's not going to be any difference between us and that hot cup of tea that comes over from the House, as Washington said. We got to cool it off, and the Senate's got to cool that off, and we're not doing a very good job.
I was going to ask you to speak for Joe Manchin for a second. So if you win the Senate and it's January, February, is Joe Manchin going to say, hey, let's blow up the filibuster on all legislation and let's pack the court? Because I don't like what Republicans did with their nominee, and in theory, they passed this nominee because they seem to have the votes. What does Joe Manchin do?
Well, first of all, if you look at my record, to all of you, if you looked at my record, I'm sure you have, I'm the most bipartisan person in the Senate. I voted for 161 of President Trump's judges, so I've been there bipartisan. I want to work in a bipartisan way. It comes down to that, Brian. Here's what happens. If you look back when Harry Reid exercised the nuclear option, which did away with the 60-vote threshold, I think every Democrat should evaluate, how did that work for us? Has that been a good decision?
No.
Has it worked out? Okay. So basically going down the same path, I will make every decision I can that keeps the Senate bipartisan.
Right.
Simply
So you're answering me, you're not going to vote to get rid of the filibuster entirely, and you're not going to look to pack the court?
I do not believe that would help anybody. Basically, no one's working together. So if you have 11 or 13, it's going to flip the other way, no matter who comes in power. So why would you go down that path? It didn't work in 2015 with a nuclear option, and I would have doubts it would work this time. We've got to fight for basically who we are as a Senate. Can we represent the people in a bipartisan way, Democrats and Republicans?
Well, it is very political, as we know, and the final vote will be very political. You can say people should keep an open mind, but you just watch. It will be along party lines. Nonetheless, Senator, as you know, mainstream media already attacking Amy Coney Barrett, and a lot of it has to do with her religion. Newsweek headline is how charismatic Catholic groups like Amy Coney Barrett's People of Praise inspired The Handmaid's Tale. Refinery 29 said, did Amy Coney Barrett's religious group inspire The Handmaid's Tale? I've also heard
that show is about polygamy. What does that mean?
Well, exactly. I have heard your colleagues in the Senate query her about her religion, which makes you wonder, should a person's religion disqualify them from a job on the Supreme Court? Because it sounds like some people on your side think that it should.
Well, I guess whatever side you're on, they can pick whatever they want to pick. I'm Catholic, okay? And religion should not enter into it. It sure doesn't with me.
Does anything about her Catholic background bother you, Senator?
Not at all. No, we are who we are, how we were raised, where we were raised, and who raised us, okay? With that being, the freedom of religion is one of the basic rights we all have as an American citizen. So with that being said, whether you're Catholic, whether you're Protestant, whether you're Jewish, evangelical, whatever it may be, God bless you. You worship who you want. You worship how you want. You worship the same God. All of us do. So with that being said, it's awful to bring in religion. It truly is. But they think that's going to, you know, John Kennedy, I remember in 1960, I was a little kid at that time, but I remember everyone said, well, if John Kennedy gets elected, the Pope's going to run the country. And I looked at my mom. I said, Mom, they don't know the Catholics we know.
Yeah, great point.
Senator, thank you for joining us.
Well, it's good to be with you. Thank you all so much. And let's keep it bipartisan. Please, let's try to bring this country back together. We're too darn good.
Sounds good to us. But, Senator, you're talking to the wrong people. You got to talk to your colleagues.
I'm going to talk on both sides. Colleagues on both sides of the aisle.
You got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Fox Business Network announced that it has officially parted ways with anchor Trish Regan following her controversial rant against what she called the coronavirus impeachment scam earlier this month. We thank her for her contributions to the network over the years and wish her continued success in her future endeavors, the network said in a statement. We will continue our reduced live primetime schedule for the foreseeable future in an effort to allocate staff resources to continuous breaking news coverage on the coronavirus crisis. I have enjoyed my time at Fox and now intend to focus on my family during these troubled times, Regan said in her own statement. I am grateful to my incredible team at Fox Business and for the many opportunities the network has provided me. I'm looking forward to this next chapter in my career. Regan was previously placed on an indefinite hiatus after she delivered a surreal monologue in which she accused the Democrats and the media of perpetuating a coronavirus hoax. With the words coronavirus impeachment scam on the screen next to her, Regan told viewers, "We've reached a tipping point. The chorus of hate being leveled at the president is nearing a crescendo as Democrats blame him and only him for a virus that originated halfway around the world. This is yet another attempt to impeach the president. Many in the liberal media using, and I mean using, coronavirus in an attempt to demonize and destroy the president," she added. Following what amounted to a suspension, Regan tried to pass off her situation as part of a larger safety measures at Fox, tweeting, "FBN has taken prudent steps to limit staffing levels and is prioritizing its coverage during market hours. I fully support this decision. We must all do our part to keep our colleagues safe." Since then, she has mostly used her Twitter account to encourage private companies to help fight the pandemic and cheer on the stock market during its rare rallies. This is the end of the video today. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Political News Networks. Thank you for watching and see you later.